In a not so glitzy but very important keynote, Dr. Roland Busch, the CEO of Siemens, presented us with the all-important idea of the industrial metaverse. Let's take a look.
You can't just have good brains, you need to feed them good data too.
Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. This is the first of my CES videos. I'm just going to do them, a little bit off the cuff, so they'll be a little bit less polished perhaps than usual, or maybe they won't be, I don't know. Maybe none of them are, but I wanted to talk about this presentation. It was the keynote that launched CES 2024, and so it obviously was a big deal, but it was also, not quite so glitzy or glamorous or anything, and you might think like Siemens, what do they do? What, big deal, something like that. But this is a company that's been around for, I think, 170 years. And they have always been a technology company. And what they showed tonight was really interesting. The sort of TLDR of this, if you just want to get the headline here, is that they are very much all into a new type of metaverse, which is the industrial metaverse, which is all about making reality better through virtual reality. So as opposed to something like Meta or previous Facebook, where they're making a metaverse that's sort of an entertainment and a way for you to escape reality, I'm much more behind the idea that Siemens has, the idea that we can take the virtual world and we can utilize that to iterate on all of these ideas to make reality better for all of us. And that's very cool. And they talked about a bunch of things: medical technology, transportation technology, factory technology. And by the way, of course, Dr. Scott Walter will be very interested in that because they have a whole bunch of stuff about virtualization of the factories and everything. So right up his alley. I was thinking to myself watching the speech, I was like, oh man, I bet he would be here. But anyway, a lot of these different areas that they talk about, and talking about collaboration, they specifically called out collaborations with Microsoft, with Sony, with Amazon Web Services, and with some smaller companies that are startups that are doing really, really cool things. So of course, hearing all of this, you might think to yourself, well, what is this industrial metaverse? Well, the way that Dr. Busch described this all is that it's a three-stage thing. There's the digital twin, there's software-defined automation, and there's data and AI. So the digital twin is like a 3D version of whatever object it is. For example, this mouse that's here. And you can have something like that, but it's much more than what you think about as a consumer, which is sort of like a rendering of it or something that you could see in a game or you could use in a game. What it is an actual physically modeled object. And of course, if you've been following along with Tesla or anything else recently, you know all about this because Tesla is all about the digital twin. They build all of the parts of their vehicles, not just their vehicles, but all of the pieces of their vehicles have digital twins. They know exactly where these things came from. They know that their capabilities, they know their physical attributes, all of those things like that. So Siemens was talking about that. Dr. Busch was talking about that, about this digital twin, a completely defined digital twin.
The digital twin we build have much more depth. They are physics-based. So what happens when we shake it, heat it, drop it, or change the software configuration? And the digital twin not only looks like the real thing, it behaves like the real thing.
Which of course looks like the real object, but much more importantly behaves like the real object. It's physically defined, it's got mass, it's got tensile strength, it's got all sorts of properties that you can test, and that allows you to iterate through this virtual world to produce products very, very rapidly without ever having to actually manufacture them. So rather than having to manufacture a bunch of prototypes of this mouse or something, or this microphone that I'm wearing, you can do this in the virtual world all the way down to the circuitry and the components and stuff inside of it. And you can build it and you can iterate all of the stuff in the virtual world. And that of course reduces the material costs, the time to build, the costs of building it, and the cost of quality, the cost of making mistakes in these prototypes and figuring it all out. It means that you can build objects much more quickly, but also you can digital twin anything else, including, he was very happy to point out, virtualized factories. So laying out the entire factory, laying out how all the components work, laying out how things work together down to even the millisecond level. And of course, that's what I was saying that Scott Walter would be happy about because that's what his company does. They virtualize factories and they virtualize layouts and they virtualize design and all of that. So that's why I said Scott would be very happy about that. Even more, Scott would be happy about the fact that they're partnering with Sony to do industrial augmented reality in the form of, these AR glasses, similar to what you've seen from Apple, but this is a Sony product and it's much more industrial. It's not quite so beautiful. It's just kind of like a big mask that you put on your face.
This is our brand new head-mounted display for 3D content creation. And what do you use it for? Okay, please take a look at the video.
And today, Siemens and Sony are introducing the next generation of industrial design, immersive engineering.
So it doesn't look so beautiful, but it is a really cool product that allows you to interact with these products, these virtualized products, and to build them and to move them around and to maneuver them in space and everything. And yeah, it looked kind of like a beta version of the hardware, and certainly the controllers were the part that I was like, oh, no, they need like gloves or something where you can actually manipulate your hands entirely instead of like just a ring on your finger or something. But anyway, you can see where this is all going. The idea here is to be able to build these virtualized products in a real environment and look around at how they fit within that environment and also within a virtual environment and put pieces together and maneuver them around as if you were in the real world. Next up, Dr. Bush talked about software-defined automation and particularly PLCs or programmable logical controllers. And if you're in this space, you might think to yourself, well, there's nothing new with this. Well, the new part about this is that what they're doing is they're removing the immense amount of technical and engineering knowledge that you need to have in order to program these things and to move them into a world where just about anyone, someone without coding or engineering knowledge in that particular area, is able to basically use a large language model to communicate with what they call Mendix, which is their integration software, to create these PLCs virtually and then of course institute them in reality eventually, and to do it all without needing to do any coding. It's just basically drag and drop. And this is where they actually talked about their integration with Amazon Web Services, AWS, and how they're going to work to integrate these things together to allow you to create a lot of AWS type work without having to do any coding.
In a factory for the automaker Audi, we will moving hundreds of PLCs into one rack. 100 virtual controllers instead of 100 little boxes. So you can run the small private local cloud from miles away while still fulfilling real-time requirements. You want to ramp up production? A few virtual controllers to be added with a few mouse clicks. You want to run software updates? One click for all of the controllers in your factory at once.
So really, really cool stuff there as well. And then of course we get to the topic of 2024, which is data and AI.
They are all being operated and optimized by PLCs. Of course, you can't just have good brains, you need to feed them good data too. And that brings me to the third building block of the industrial metaverse: data and AI.
He talked about how an automated factory can produce 2,000 terabytes a month of data from that one factory, and how you can utilize all of that data. You can filter the data, you can analyze the data, you can train on the data in order not just to make the current factories more efficient, but in order to build new factories more efficiently and to shave milliseconds off of all sorts of different places, to shave the amount of energy that you need out of the buildings and out of the factory and out of the equipment and building and manufacturing and all of that stuff, so that you can start saving, not just 1 or 2% off of everything, but 10 or 20+% off of the heating costs to heat the factory or to run the energy for it, or to shave 10 or 20% off the amount of time in a line it takes to go from the raw material to your outputted product. And of course, he called out the need to collaborate, the fact that no single company will be able to do this on their own. Obviously, these are huge kinds of things. So in the end, in a way, Dr. Bush actually kind of turned the whole idea of the metaverse on its head. The idea of the metaverse being an escape from reality and sort of better than reality and a place that you want to spend your time. He flipped it on its head in a really interesting way, and a way that, again, I said speaks to me much better, and that is using all of this virtual reality in order to make real reality much better, much more quickly. And taking a quote from the famous science fiction author William Gibson, he said their idea is to distribute the future evenly.
With generative AI and the industrial metaverse, we all can accelerate innovation, accelerate sustainability, accelerate access to new technology.
So while at first when I went into this keynote, I didn't have high expectations, I actually came out very, very impressed. This was something where I was like, okay, it's not a sexy thing, right? It's not sexy to get all of this infrastructure and everything working as well as possible, but it is the way to get to a better future much more quickly. They talked about medical advances and things like that too. I didn't really talk about that in this video, but you know, all of this stuff is enabling technology. So it doesn't really matter what it is that you want, whether it's medical technology or driving technology or better, more efficient factories or anything like that. All of those things are enabled by this industrial metaverse. And so I wanted to bring that to your attention so that you're paying attention over the next couple of years to see how all of this develops. So what do you think? Is that interesting to you as well? Or do you think it's kind of a waste of time or whatever? Definitely let me know in the comments. While you're down there, please do like the video so other people can find it. And of course, consider subscribing for more of this kind of content. As always, a huge shout out to my patrons on Patreon, my YouTube channel members, and of course, my ex-subscribers. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel in any way that you can. And if you want to join any of the teams, just check out the links in the description. And if you're interested in a whole bunch of really cool merch, check out our merch store. Link is in the description. We have TeslaBot t-shirts, the Tesla meme t-shirt, success is a possible outcome, 4680 battery cells. All of that stuff is on t-shirts, mugs, tumblers, and on and on. So check it out. And finally, don't forget we are both Tesla and Amazon affiliates. If you look in the description, you can see how going shopping for a new car, solar roof, Powerwall, or anything on Amazon helps out the channel. In the meantime, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.